Hello, Capel ISD fifth graders. This is Mr. W, and I'm the Director of Science here in Capel ISD, which means I'm one of the biggest science enthusiasts you'll ever meet. I love everything science. You might even find me or see me in some of your classrooms helping out with experiments or brainstorming with you and your teachers. And that is exactly why I'm here today, is to help you brainstorm about what you might be doing right now, which is writing nonfiction books. And did you know that when you write nonfiction, you could choose a topic that's within science and it's already nonfiction? It's easy because all the things that scientists do and things that they write about are all nonfiction because it's based on facts and information and research and asking questions and coming up with answers and conclusions and then sharing that with people like us. So those things could be weather and environment. It could be plants or animals or something to do with outer space, all kinds of different topics, but they all save their information and share it with us in things that you actually already have here in Capel ISD, such as Brain Pop, where you can go and get some great information. There are other things like Power Knowledge that you can go and read some things about something that you're interested in. There are journals out there, such as Science Journal for Kids. We have in Mac and Via through Capel ISD, you have Britannica and some other things and National Geographic actually is in there for kids. So you can really get some great information out there, and it's all nonfiction. So it'll make your writing easier for you. So if you were to write about your favorite plant or animal, what would it be? And how could you narrow that down? Look at how many options you can see in the world. All over the 7 continents, there are different plants and animals that live every day. And some of them are up on the ground like we are, or some of them might be deep in a forest, or maybe even underwater. So there are so many options, but you can pick one that you are excited about, that is interesting to you, and it'll be different from everybody else. It's so fun to investigate some of these different types of plants and animals that are out there. And one of the things you might want to write about is actually what biome your plant or animal is a part of. So is it an aquatic biome where there are obviously lots of water, but also coral reefs, and it could be maybe it lives in the deep sea. That's its habitat. So the habitat is kind of what is it surrounded by. It might live in the open ocean. It might live near the beaches. So there are all kinds of different habitats within the aquatic biome, and you can see a starfish there living right on the coral reef and feeding on certain kinds of algae. So lots of different things to study within the aquatic biomes. And grasslands, the main part of a grassland is the grass. So there are some amazing plants out there, and animals too that kind of all live together on the grassland. Some live near rivers and streams. Some live on the open grassland, the tall grass prairies. Some live near the trees. But lots of variety of wildlife out there, plants and animals. And same for the forest. You have creatures that live down on the ground in the leaf matter. You might have them living in a pond or a stream. They could even live up in the trees. And the trees themselves, like great redwoods in California, are an amazing, amazing story of how they survive and how they've lived for years and years and years. So very interesting things to study in the forest. And in the desert also, all the plants and all the animals are very, very specialized to live in that environment, and they are so unique and so interesting. And there are different parts within the desert that they can live, whether it be in the sand, in the scrub brush, or in the cacti themselves, or up in the hills. You may find the same to be true for the tundra, where some animals live in the coniferous forest, some might live more close to the seasonal ice caps that form. Very, very neat stuff. And again, very, very specialized organisms that can actually live and thrive there. And so once you kind of hone down what your topic might be, you might ask yourself, first of all, what's its biome like, and where's its habitat? And also, what is the plant or animal's role in the whole ecosystem? Because there there are tons of different organisms that live in any given place. So is yours a producer? So in other words, does it use light, water, and nutrients from the soil to make energy for itself and live on its own? Or is it a consumer that needs something else to survive? It needs to use energy from either plants or other animals to survive. That would be a consumer. Or is it a decomposer, which basically takes anything that has basically died or ended its life, and it recycles the energy and the nutrients and all that back into the earth so that it can be reused again. So very, very interesting stuff. Also, within those, you could be a carnivore, an herbivore, an omnivore, which I think you've probably heard of before. So do you eat meat only, or do you eat only plants? Or like humans actually are mostly omnivores, so they kind of have a mixture of both things. But different animals and plants are not necessarily, first of all, plants don't fall under that category at all. They're not a carnivore or an herbivore or an omnivore. They're kind of on their own. However, plants do get their energy in different ways, as you'll see. So great questions to kind of talk about while you're writing. And also in the ecosystem, your organism, your plant, or your animal will live in a certain area and at a certain habitat. And what else is going on there? What's their community like? So what are the living and the non-living things that are around them? So what are they surrounded by? Are there other plants and animals that they interact with in the community? So does one thing influence or cause something to do something? So lots of interactions can occur there. What are the needs of your plant or animal? Do they require lots of water? Do they require lots of leaves to eat? Is it a plant that requires a certain kind of soil, or is it an insect that requires a specific flower? There are so many specific needs within each community for each different plant and each different animal that you can find out about. And so that might mean it competes with other plants and animals too. So I have an example there with the butterfly and the bee. They're competing for one thing, and that is shown to you. They need certain things from nature in order to survive and for their species to survive. So it's a very interesting way to look at things. Do they actually compete with each other? How is your plant or animal specifically designed to survive in its habitat? So do they have special adaptations, which means they have certain specialized parts or colors or behaviors that make them able to do well at things where they live? So I have a couple of examples here, like the anteater. I mean, look at the way that anteater looks. It's one of the most unique looking creatures, and he's over here on the right, by the way. One of the most unique looking creatures that you can find in nature, specifically suited to do what it does and live where it does. Look at the little bunny rabbit in the lower right picture there. That looks like a very specialized fur coat that it has for the reasons it needs to live there. It needs to have a fur coat like that for many different reasons, actually. So you might also ask yourself, okay, does this animal or plant do something specific to help itself survive? So you might see, say, this fish down in the lower left corner. They have some very specific parts that enable them to literally find food and certainly survive. So you might then ask yourself, is that thing inherited or not? Did it get it from its parents? Was it passed down through generations and generations? And sometimes that can cause differences in the same plant or animal. For example, this moth here, these are the same exact kind of moth, but they look very different because their inherited traits are slightly different from each other, yet they are still the same moth. So that's pretty neat to think about. And I have a Venus flytrap picture in there on the bottom center, and lily pads. Lily pads and the way they live is completely different than other plants. Why are they so special? Why can they just literally live and float in water their entire lives? So just different questions for you to think about as you do your research. And then specifically about behavior, how do they act? What do they do that's different to help them survive? And that's plants and animals. Did you know that plants can actually move themselves to help them survive? So this plant in the lower left is actually bending towards the window. Why might it do that? What does it need over there? Why is it growing that way and not the other way? So great questions to ask. What is that little, in the center of the screen, what is this little creature all balled up for? Why is he doing that? And how long does he stay that way? Why does he choose to do that? These fish down in the bottom middle, why are they all together? Why don't they just, there's plenty of ocean out there, why don't they just go off and be by themselves? They don't need all those other fish, do they? Or maybe they do. So those are questions you can ask and get answers to out there. This chimpanzee in the lower right, he's actually made a tool. So he's actually using that, and I'm going to tell you he's using that to get bugs out of the tree, very nutritious bugs, and he will eat them. So he's using a tool to help survive. That's a behavior. Did he learn that? Or did he just know how to do it when he was born? That's all questions you can ask. Did they have to also, some of the behaviors are instincts. Did they just know how to do it all along? Or did this change happen recently? Because the environment around us and all of these creatures, plants and animals, is changing drastically. So did they have to make a change recently and change the way they do things to help them survive? So great questions to ask. And so the final thing is, how does your plant or animal fit into the whole global ecosystem? So what happens if they're not there? What happens if they all went away? Would it be good? Would it be bad? What would that cause to happen to other things? Is the population of those plants or animals changing right now? Is their survival threatened for any reason? Are they trying to live, but people are cutting down the trees that they need to survive? Or are they building cities, people building cities where they are usually able to live, and now they can't anymore? What's happening to them? Because if you look at a picture like this, which you might have seen before, this is actually food chain, or I'm sorry, this is a food web, but you may have seen food chains or food webs in your learning. Lots of different organisms, plants and animals, need each other for different things. So if you do something to one of them, it could affect lots of others over time. So I want you to think about how your plant or animal fits into that whole global ecosystem and how everything is all interconnected. So I think you'll have a really fun time doing your project. I think you'll be able to find a topic that's really interesting to you and something that you'll be really excited to share your learning about. And I can't wait to see what you do and read some of what you write. And I'm going to be around for questions. So if ever you have a question, you can always ask me, and I will see you soon.